I'm looking at There is a Gold Light in certain old paintings by Donald Justice. This is a sort of small thing, but the title, as it appears in the book, is in quotations, and the only capital is the beginning there. The rest are lowercase and in italics. There's a gold light in certain old paintings that represents a diffusion of sunlight. It is like happiness when we are happy. It comes from everywhere and from nowhere at once, this light, and the poor soldiers sprawled at the foot of the cross share in its charity equally with the cross. Orpheus hesitated beside the black river. With so much to look forward to, he looked back. We think he sang then, but the song is lost. At least he had seen once more the beloved back. I say the song went this way. Oh, prolong now the sorrow, if that is all there is to prolong. The world is very dusty, uncle. Let us work. One day the sickness shall pass from the earth for good. The orchard will bloom. Someone will play the guitar. Our work will be seen as strong and clean and good. And all that we suffered through having existed shall be forgotten as though it had never existed. Justice had this in sections 1, 2, 3, so there actually should be a 1, 2, 3 next to these stanzas. I think a lot of the poems I love remain a little mysterious to me. And this one is certainly one that remains a bit mysterious to me. But part of what I love is the mystery. These 3 sections, all quite lucid, I think in their own section, the way they speak to each other, the way they interact with each other, remains a bit mysterious to me, but it certainly gives me a lot with which to engage. I think one of the things I'm interested in is the way the poem moves through realms of art, beginning with painting, and then the poetry and music, and the second section, and theater and drama, and the last one. There seems, in this trajectory, a fuller and fuller immersion into the world of art. So in the first section, we are looking at a painting. We seem to be with a group, a kind of community, or at least one other person looking at this painting. We as readers then join that little community of lookers looking at this image, and we're connected to it. I love it is like happiness when we are happy, right? So it insists on that kind of knowledge of it. We can't look at it and say, oh, that light, that's like happiness. We only understand it when we are actually happy. In other words, when we actually are, have enough of a connection to be experienced, to be connected to it. And then we move into the second section of the myth, and a short sort of retelling of the Orpheus myth. And I think the we sort of becomes larger. We think he sang then, but the song is lost. So the we perhaps becomes, everyone over many centuries, over time, who has been engaged and interested in this myth, which spans a lot of us. There's also something terribly audacious here, I think, right? Neither Virgil nor Ovid ever dared to disclose the song of Orpheus. None of them gave us any line to imagine of what Orpheus might have sung. And Justice does it here. Oh, prolong now the sorrow, if that is all there is to prolong. And of course, the double prolongs. Justice invented this stanza form. I don't think it's ever appeared anywhere else, and there's something so stately and strange about it. It's pressing just beyond that pentameter line, and it's not this sort of subtle rhyme scheme. B and D are rhymed, and then the last two lines have just the full-on repetition, right? Light, light, cross, cross, back, back, prolong, prolong. And then, of course, when we get to that line of Orpheus, if we're reading the poem, we are sort of saying it with him. So we're not just sort of outside listening to the story of Orpheus. We have sort of entered it and entered into the song with him in a way that we couldn't fully enter the painting. In other words, we are more immersed with a larger we inside this kind of art. And then the last section, which I think is the strangest of all, seems to be him picking up the voice of Sonia, the character of Sonia from Chekhov's Uncle Vanya, where it's a sort of revision, rewriting, re-envisioning of her final speech in that play. But it's not exactly this sort of refuge in a vision of mercy as she envisions it, where she says, our life will then grow quiet and sweet as a caress. This isn't exactly that. But again, in terms of the immersion, where we were standing outside of the painting and at first outside of the myth and then participating in the song of Orpheus, here suddenly we all are Sonia, inside the world of a play, not outside of it, but in it with her. And we're together in a very different kind of way. Bob Hass said in his talk that often, poems will almost say the opposite of what they say. And to me, there's a kind of example of that here in this final vision, which on some level seems incredibly sad, right? We will be forgotten, as though we had never existed. But then it's more complicated than that, because it's all that we suffered through having existed shall be forgotten as though it had never existed. And even though we are bound up in our existence with our suffering, there's something sort of positive about the suffering falling away. And even though what's being affirmed on some level is how we will be forgotten, what rings at the end is existed. Right. And that existence rings in such a long way, and in such a sort of affirmed way, that it almost takes us, the music of it almost gives us a different register than the literal part of what is being suggested. And I think that that forward motion of the echo has something to do with the forward motion of the instruction. The world is very dusty, uncle. Let us work. So I'll leave it there.